This is Katrina, and this is Tampa Home Talk.
Oh, she's so far off mic.
Joe, you can't hear me? Okay, hold on. Can you hear me? Is that better?
That's
Good
better.
morning. This is a live radio show, and it's not always perfect. I'm your host, Katrina Mingwell. Welcome. This is Tampa Home Talk, also joined by...
Adam Talley with Talley Insurance. Leo Kane with Barrow Engineering and Inspection.
And you guys sound great, right, Pat? Everybody's good?
Everybody sounds wonderful.
All right. You're in rare form today, man. I can hear you babbling in my ear before the show started.
Has he already been
I'm
to
an
the
expert
Arches?
at babblers.
Yes, you are. And we also have a great guest today. We have Mr. Terry Pittos. He is Pasco County Planning and Development Department Director. It's going to be so exciting to talk to him. He knows all the cool stuff coming in Tampa. Welcome to the show, Pasco. Pasco, Tampa.
Yes, Pasco.
Pasco County, yeah. The city of Tampa, you probably don't know a whole bunch of what's going on there, right?
I know where it is.
Just what you guys are bumping into each other, planning accordingly.
Right.
So a little bit about Mr. Terry. He's Planning Development Director. He's responsible for all the county's comprehensive plan, the implementation, zoning review, development review, also transportation planning. That'll be a really fun thing to talk about. And guide Pasco County's current and future physical growth to meet long-term vision. So you got 16 years in the public sector,
Yes.
working professionally in the urban planning policy management. You also worked in Chicago.
I did.
Wow, you're going to have quite a bit of experience to bring into. It's quite different, I'm sure, Pasco to Chicago, right?
It's a little different.
Yeah. Okay, so you hold a master's in science in urban planning, also from the University of Illinois, and College in Urban Planning Policy Administration, Bachelor of Art in Science from UIC, and you're a certified planner with the American Institute of Certified Planners. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So how long have you been with Pasco?
I've been with Pasco now for about 2 years.
2
Actually,
years.
October 2017, so this will be the second full year.
So the ultimate question, did you move from Chicago to Florida 2 years ago?
I did.
Oh, look at that. So what drove you from Chicago? What drove you to Florida?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. What brought me to Florida was the opportunities. It's a really big urban planning area, the Tampa Bay region, and there's a lot of urban planning opportunities out here. And yeah, I thought that I could expand my career.
So I have a really super curious question. Mm-hmm. When you were in Chicago, right, you think of huge infrastructures in terms of public transportation, right, and all this sort of stuff. And then you look at a small area like Pasco, right, and Tampa's growing really, really quickly. Mm-hmm. Public transportation is really not a thing here compared to places like Chicago. But when you look at that, and you were first thinking about coming here in your line of work, did you look in the city of Tampa first, and what drove you to this area specifically?
I did look at the city of Tampa when I was searching for positions in this region, or in Florida in general. The city of Tampa was one place that I did look. I also looked at a lot of the cities that were in Pinellas. What attracted me particularly to Pasco was just the hot growth that's taking place here. And I thought, if you're going to get in the thick of it, you got to get in the thick of it. So Pasco County is a great place to work and get a lot of experience as it relates to the different types of planning projects that you'll get exposed to. I mean, I'm getting exposed to a variety of projects, everything from agricultural all the way to transit planning activities. So
tell me, what's the oddest one that you just weren't expecting? We said agriculture. I wouldn't have pegged that. Would you guys have thought about that?
Yeah, definitely.
You would have. You probably would have, Leo. Your brain wires a little different than mine.
I think the most surprising project to me, something that I probably wasn't expecting, was to kind of look at, planning land disposal. Like waste disposal areas.
Yeah.
And that for me was kind of really new. I never thought I would do that. Also, some planning around aviation. I had never done that in Chicago, even though I should say that in my early career, I was planning around, for the listeners, if they know Chicago at all, I was one of the planners around the Midway Airport area. I didn't really do any aviation planning there. I was just doing like neighborhood planning. But you had airplanes flying over the neighborhoods quite a bit. Out here, it's kind of interesting to actually look into the aspect of aviation planning.
Yeah, we have neighborhoods with aviation in them.
Right, right.
It's just how it works. We actually in Pasco, we have, I think 4, if my memory is correct, like pilot type communities where people own small Cessnas and they actually have hangars where they can park their plane right there next to their house.
Right.
They're pretty cool. I've toured a lot of those.
Don't you have to register that with like the FAA or something?
That's a question for you, not me.
If it's an airplane, I suppose you do.
I mean, I'm sure you do, but the whole community is built for, it's like, Pilot's Country is one just north of here. I mean, that's how it is. They're built for pilots to live there. And
it's like if you like to play golf and you live on the golf course.
Sort of, yeah. I mean, it's like having a car and parking it in your garage, only it's a plane.
You can definitely tell when something's new because there's no need to make it a fancy name. It's just the Pilot's Country.
I think was that the first one? Do you know? I don't know.
I don't know, but it is kind of, it's been out there for a while.
I can't think of the name. That's the first one that popped in my mind in terms of name. I can't think of the other ones. I can see the streets in my head and I know where they are, but I can't.
Cockpit Lane, Stewardess Aisle.
No, it's not. It would make sense to name them those, but it's not. So what's the coolest project you're working on right now?
I think one of the coolest projects that have come to Pasco that we've been working on now for quite a bit of time and was just announced in the news is the Moffitt Center. I think that's one of the neatest projects that are coming into Pasco. It's located. We were kind of talking about it before the show. It's located about 2 minutes north of Suncoast and 54 as you go north on the Suncoast. Right now, it's all a bunch of pasture land, but it's all being planned. About 24 million square feet of
holy smokes
non-residential development.
So I have a curious question. If you're, say, the person listening, right, and it applies for anywhere you live, right, not just Pasco, how do you get involved as far as a community participation? Like, how do you be involved to know what's coming next, and like what's a good way for the person that doesn't work for Pasco County to be involved?
I think the best way to get involved with Pasco County planning is to go to the Pasco County website as a first step. Go to the Pasco County website and scroll all the way to the bottom of that main homepage, and on the right you'll see this little link called Project Pipeline, and if you click that link, it'll take you to one of our websites, the Planning and Development Department's websites, and we identify all the projects that we're currently working on right now. And there's a map there that you can type your address in, and it'll zoom you into your area, and it'll then identify all the different types of planning projects that are happening in your neighborhood. And then you can click on the map and you can pick
everything from your roads being paved to, right, anything coming?
Not necessarily the road pavements.
Okay.
But it'll tell you what developments are taking place within the area, right? And sometimes with those developments come some road projects that you'd be able to identify when they do like access management or they analyze how the development is going to impact the local street network. So you can find all the details there on our website, and then after that it's a matter of clicking, opening the plans, because we make all those plans publicly available, researching it yourself if you want, and if you have any questions you can always call the planning department and we'll hook you up with the planner who's working on that project specifically and get you all the information that you want.
What if someone is just super curious about everything going on and they just want to attend, I don't know, planning meetings or whatever? Do you have those? Are they open to the public?
Yes, almost all planning meetings are open to the public, and I say almost because our staff meetings are not necessarily open to the public.
That's probably a good thing.
But I suppose you could show up and ask. I mean, it's all out in the open. It's all transparent.
So what goes into it's interesting, and I do not love our outline, by the way, guys. I'm just going to say, so we're just chiming and asking whatever you want because I'm not going to use most of this. I'm just saying.
Fair enough.
But one of the things I do like on this one outline, it's probably the only question I'll use, is the planner's job is to analyze the pieces of the community, the buildings, the roads, the parks, and see how they all fit together. Can you give me an example of what that looks like? Like if I'm watching you over a period of several weeks into months plan and organize something, what are some of the things you're looking at? What are some of the things you're going to bump into that cause you to try to rearrange or reorganize or rethink how it's going to go? And I guess before you answer that, we'll have to table that going into the break. But just hold that thought. Think about it going into the break, and we'll answer it with some really cool answers, I'm sure, coming up back after the break. Listen, our off-air number, if you want to connect with us or anybody on our team, 813-377-2775. You can call or text us anytime, 813-377-2775. And by the way, if you're listening, I heard that Anthony O'Neill's book was dropped this week. So if you won one of the books and you received it, and maybe even if you read it, if you're a quick reader and you just got it, let me know. Call in. We would love to hear from you. I'll let Pat George give out our on-air number. This is Tampa Home Talk. We will be back right after this break. Stick around.
888-4.
This is Adam Talley with Talley Insurance, joined by Leo Kane with Barrel Project Engineering and Inspections.
Just in case you forgot your own name.
I'm good on that. I'm good at that.
I'm your host, Katrina Madewall. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking around. If you are just now joining the show, our guest for this hour is Mr. Terry Pittos. He is the Planning and Development Department Director. And right before the break, I knew you wouldn't have enough time to answer it, so you're going to have to wait till we came back. But one of the questions I asked you, and we talked about, is, the scope of your job is to really analyze how all those pieces of the community fit together, from the buildings to the roads to the parks. And we talked about like airplanes coming over neighborhoods and buildings and that sort of stuff. And you have to determine things that work and don't work and shift and kind of make it all come together like a nice puzzle. So the question for you is, if I followed you around for a couple weeks or a month or however long, some of these projects I'm sure take a year or more. What are some of the things we'd bump into? What are some of the things that somebody like me that has no idea what goes into your job, what are some things that would surprise me, or I'd be like, oh wow, I never thought about that?
I think the one thing that would surprise most people, they show up at the public hearings and whatnot, and they see a lot of times the Board of County Commissioners, or the Planning Commission first, and then the Board of County Commissioners, and they hear a project, the planners present, and the applicants then present their case, and then the Board of County Commissioners have a little bit of a discussion, then they vote on the subject, and lo and behold, it's approved. And a lot of times they see that approval process play out again and again and again. What the public isn't seeing is the vetting process that's happening for months, weeks, months, oftentimes even years ahead of that project getting to those public hearings. So there's a lot of projects that come into the Planning and Development Department that don't meet code, that are not good plans, are not consistent with the comprehensive plan. And the Planning and Development Department is saying, this needs work, it needs to be fixed, or this isn't going to move forward at all because it doesn't meet the comprehensive plan or doesn't meet code. And then the projects that actually do meet code and that are consistent with the comprehensive plan, those we work on, those we massage, and we bring them to the point where they're ripe. Well, that's what we call it internally. They're ripe projects to be brought to the public hearings, and they come to the Planning Commission and the Board of County Commissioners, and that's how you get a lot of quote-unquote approvals happening all the time, because all the stuff that's been turned away has been turned away in the background.
You're not wasting people's time.
Right. Now, there are times at these public hearings where there are certain issues that come up from public comment and whatnot, because the public hearing isn't the end. It's part of the process, and the public is always welcome to come in and contribute to their ideas to it. And often, those ideas are then incorporated into those projects. And sometimes that will delay a project, but other times it gets it approved. And then there's other times where, the public hearing process plays out and you see a project sort of get denied publicly.
Give me an example of one that maybe if people are like, what?
Sometimes a project, it may meet all the necessary, let's say it meets most code requirements, and then there's like a variance associated with it. And so the applicant has to prove their case for why they have a hardship, right? And that's kind of a decision point that's influenced by policy and whatnot a lot of times. So if they don't prove their case successfully in the public hearing, that can result in a denial.
So I have a question for you. Obviously, you got your finger on the pulse of everything that's going on in Pasco County. As far as the planning's going, what are you guys planning for as far as population growth in the next 10 years with all the stuff that's happening?
Right now we're about 500,000 people. I think we're just shy of 500,000 people. And what we're projecting in the 2045 long-range transportation plan is to be just under 1 million people by 2045.
Wow. Okay.
About 900,000.
So double the amount of people that are here
in 25 years,
right
basically?
now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what's the long-term plan in terms of Pasco County transportation? Because I know when I moved here 15 years ago, there was no buses at all or anything like that. And now I've actually seen Not a lot, but I've seen a bus that runs down 54.
Yeah, so most of the transit planning is going to happen by PCPT, Pasco County Public Transport. And a lot of the high-level transit planning is going to take place by the Metropolitan Planning Organization, the MPO, that we in PDD work closely with them. They're actually working on that 2045 LRTP that I just mentioned, the Long Range Transportation Plan. I think it's called Mobility 2045. And they've actually studied how much it's going to take to build the transportation network to meet the 2045 needs, and also they've built in components there for what kind of transit services that we could expect in 2045. I think one of the biggest challenges we're facing right now in the planning world is what's transportation and transit going to look like in 2045. We have massive technological innovation taking place, and it's really changing the way transportation is being thought of.
Like cars that drive by themselves and that sort of stuff.
Automated vehicles, automated freight trucking, transit services like buses, bus rapid transit.
Talk about throwing a monkey wrench into your what you've done your whole life. Like this little technology thing comes in and just rearranges everything.
It's kind of fun at the same time.
Right, I'm sure.
Well,
Yeah.
like I go back to the Future Part 2, where
Part
they
of
said
flying.
30 years from now, which would be 2015, we'd have all these things that didn't exist. The only
Missed it.
only thing we have that's even close is those scooters are everywhere. So I guess they did nail the flying skateboards.
Hey, I like those scooters.
Microtransit's a big deal now. It's really changing the way
So
that last
give
mile
us a
is.
little sneak peek into 2045. What do you think this place will look like?
Well, we'll definitely have more roads. It's just a matter of what's going to be on those roads.
Please, some light rail as well.
Are they? Well,
Please,
that's what
some
I'm
more-
wondering. Like, are
please,
they
some
planning
rail
any
systems.
type of? I don't really like the buses, but I think the rail system would be awesome. And if you ask me, I think there should be a rail system of some sort that connects Pasco, Pinellas, Hillsborough, like a big freaking ring around the city. Like you look at Atlanta on the map, like that, only some of it would go over water, right? Which can pose some challenges, but really we should have something like that. And I know you have other places where rail goes underwater, so.
Well, we have a problem here in Tampa Bay where we can't make a true loop system like other cities because we have the bay.
Right. But you're the perfect person to chime in on this, Leo. It can be done. Anything can be done.
It would be really expensive to put in an above water monorail system, or a below water monorail system would probably be impossible.
I would think it'd be cheaper to go up, wouldn't
Yeah.
it?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you got to think
Really?
of all those pylons you got to produce and everything else. I mean, either way, it's going to be really expensive to get a true loop system in place. So we have a lot of north-south corridors and a lot of east-west. Tampa's biggest problem
There's no loop.
is there's no loop. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think the closest thing to a loop right now is what the regional transportation planning agencies are kind of looking at is a BRT service that will.
What does that mean? You're gonna have to break that down
Yeah,
for
BRT is
myself and the layperson listening.
Bus rapid transit. So
Okay.
if you can think of a light rail system and how that operates, it would be kind of the same concept, except it's on wheels and in its own dedicated sort of travel lane on the road. So a bus rapid transit system is currently being planned from Wesley Chapel all the way to downtown St. Petersburg. And
I
then
guess that's a really good short-term, sort of inexpensive, comparatively speaking, plan.
Well, if it's got its own lane, it'll be run on time.
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
But I'm saying you can use the current infrastructure that's here, right, to run that plan versus having to build.
Right, and that's a good first step because rail is really expensive to build too. You have to acquire a lot of land, and then the actual development of that infrastructure, and then the actual rail cars themselves cost a lot of money.
I mean, it's just, I wonder, like, it doesn't seem, every time I've talked to somebody like yourself, there's no big plans in place to do any type of loop or even really think about that.
Well, you got to think about it from like a land grab standpoint. Just take a look at TBX, which might still be dead, but the city for close to a decade has been trying to just acquire pieces of land to get to a point where they can enact eminent domain to take the rest. And this is like 10 years of voting to enact a plan that's 30 years old that's already out of date. And that's what you run into a lot of times.
That's true.
Are you talking about to use the existing rail system that's there, or what are you talking
No,
about?
I'm talking about, like, if you're going to have a dedicated lane,
Yeah.
you need to either
You
put
gotta
it in the center
expand
of the
it.
highway,
Right.
so you got to make the highway bigger. I mean, there's all this planning that goes into it, and nothing happens fast when you're talking about eminent domain.
Right. It doesn't. And it shouldn't, really, thinking about eminent domain. And so, I mean, for the person listening, if you're not familiar with what eminent domain is, right?
Oh, yeah,
Because let's
true.
not assume everybody knows what that is. That's where basically, and I don't want to say this in a way to scare people because it really doesn't happen like this, but what happens is, in this case, we're talking about public transportation. If they have, say, let's say we are planning some type of big monorail system, right? Like one of you guys said, you have to acquire the land. That's a whole process that goes into it. So acquire the land happens via something called eminent domain. And what that is where basically if you're on the path of where roads are either trying to expand, the monorail system's going to go up, whatever it is, the county or city or municipality would actually buy your land for fair market value.
Yeah.
Fair market value.
Without
Yes.
a
I was getting to it, and basically, acquire that land to build the infrastructure that the city.
And they walk around with a
municipalities
red
require.
armband with a hammer and a sickle on it when they do it.
Yeah. So people think, eminent domain, the government's just going to take your land, but that's not really how it works. And like Leo said, it's a long process. All right, we'll be back. It's Tampa Home Talk. Stick around.
Good morning, welcome back. Leo Kane with Barrel Engineering and Inspection, joined with Adam Talley from Talley Insurance, Katrina Madewell from Tampa Home Talk, and Kelly Williams.
Are you excited this morning or what?
I just get
Just
really
checking.
amped up talking about eminent domain.
You're so
I
football.
do.
Really?
I do.
He loves eminent domain.
The problem is you get this what's good for the people argument versus what the government's trying to do versus the bureaucracy
Yeah.
and all this red tape that goes around the arm with a little hammer and sickle. But I mean, yeah, this is why we can't get stuff done. This is why our road system is so antiquated, because roads, rails, all of these things require the acquirement of land.
Well, I think Pasco actually has done a much better job than Tampa. I'm just saying.
Well, I mean, with the
and
greenways,
Pinellas is even worse.
I laugh at the greenways because no one wants to stop a greenway. You want to put a bike lane in? You can have the whole street. But yeah, you got to put a road in? No.
But if I can add something to the
Love for you to add something.
He's about to
Terry.
get fired.
I like that.
Remember our guest who got fired right after the show?
No, stop it. He's kidding. He's kidding.
A lot of planning departments, and I'll speak to a lot of the planners in the region for them, I should say, but a lot of the planners work really hard to anticipate what's needed in the future. And so when projects are coming in, developments are coming, we work with those property owners to acquire the lands in a negotiated, fair way.
You say we, but I have a feeling it's not you out there.
Well, I
talking
mean,
to
I've done it
homeowners.
before.
Have you?
It is the motherland people.
Yeah, but
The baseball bats.
Often it's because we talked about traffic analysis that we
Right.
do, or transportation analysis that we do, and we discovered that if you're going to have this kind of project located at this particular intersection or near this intersection, you're anticipating so many different types of turning movements coming in and out of your business or of your development. And as a result of that, you have to start talking about what kind of infrastructure is needed to support that. And so that's how you start to get development by development, additional land for transportation. So you try to avoid eminent domain whenever you can. It's kind of the last resort.
How far in advance do they start actually planning for roads? Like when it's too late and they already need them, or
About
20 years?
About 30 years after that.
20 years, yeah.
it's crazy to think it takes 20 years to plan a road, doesn't it?
Oh, but my favorite thing is the traffic studies, because I've been a part of those. When you have an engineering firm, we don't do this, by the way, but engineering firms will actually calculate the amount of people that will turn on and off during certain parts of the day, and that will determine whether or not you need a turn lane or a traffic light. And it's just amazing to see these studies in motion. Well, for me and for you, but
Yeah.
for the average listener, they're probably already asleep.
Sounds like a very important game of Sims almost.
Yeah,
It is.
It's like SimCity.
I don't watch TV, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
That's a video game.
Oh, okay. I don't get that either. Oh my gosh. So let's talk a little bit about the Connected City project. I know we talked about this with Catherine Starkey, I think the last time we had her on the show, but it's been quite a while. I would love to do a roundtable with the commissioners, all of them, like for Pasco, Hillsborough, Pinellas.
We need to get that Hillsborough County Commissioner on this show.
Yeah, let's do a roundtable with as many of them as we can. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
That really would be.
Who can organize that eminent domain? We need one of your best officials to talk.
That's not.
Yeah, let's
it's not gonna happen.
let's just change guest acquisition to eminent domain.
Yeah,
Guest
that's not gonna-
acquisition.
So, with the Connected City project, talk a little bit about that. What is that?
So Connected City is actually, I think it's it's the first, how would you describe it? I've heard it so many times now, my mind has kind of stopped. It's the country's first gigabyte community. It's a really big deal. The state of Florida and Pasco County and the region work together to get this. It's located on the southeast corner of State Road 52 and I-75. Out there.
Out there.
Yeah, out there. For now, at least.
Up there.
Up there, yeah.
And then it's going to be like south of there at some point.
Yeah, well, it's growing, and we've got two major communities being built currently, Epperson and Murata. Those two places are just, they're flying off the shelf with people moving in. I think recently it was in the news, too, the amount of technology that's integrated into the homes that are being built out there, and also into the infrastructure that's being built from internet coming off of the lamp posts, for example, to the gigabyte infrastructure that's built into the roads that feed into the various houses. I think it was recently in the news that they're building these houses with, every house has mirrors and your typical appliances and what have you, and the appliances and the mirrors and things that are being built into there can actually give you stats on your health. Like they can do health scans for you. I mean, that's kind of crazy technology, yeah. And it's all being built in these communities up in Connected City, in the Connected City area. Of course, it's being, it's very new, so it's got a 50-year build-out. But
I almost bought a home in Epperson right when they first started building. Like literally, there was nothing there. The lagoon wasn't there yet.
There's still time.
It was like even right before the realtors got a tour. Like I got a little bit of a tour. They weren't even. They had just built like one of the first houses. The stager hadn't even set up yet. And I was like, I really should buy a house here. Now I regret it.
It's time to downsize.
Every time I have that little feeling, I gotta follow it, and I didn't, and I regret it. Anyway.
And you mentioned the Crystal Lagoon, which is important because Connected City has the country's first Crystal Lagoon at Epperson. And they're actually building a second Crystal Lagoon at Murata. So we'll have two Crystal Lagoons.
There's another one coming south, too, in Hillsborough.
Are they coming out south in Hillsborough? Nice.
Yep, they're just going to pop up, I guess, everywhere. We're going to be like the resort state.
I haven't seen one of the. I mean, I know what it is, but I haven't been to one yet.
Oh, let's go. I'll take you. We'll do like a field trip.
Yeah,
let's go. Oh my gosh, you haven't been there?
We should do a show from there. We should do a show from there one
time. You saw my Facebook post, right?
I don't.
Being
probably
there?
not. I don't know.
My gosh.
I see a lot of things on Facebook.
You've been there, Leo, haven't you?
Where?
The lagoon, Crystal Lagoon.
No, that's why I said where.
Where? Like you're playing your video game. You're not even on the show with us. Oh, you're responding to emails.
Yes.
Sorry.
Well, I just don't know where Crystal Lagoon is.
It's just north of here, not by much.
Yeah, not by much.
You mean WikiWatchy's north of here?
No, you haven't been either.
It's near Overpass and nice.
It's like a man-made.
You guys are like on a different planet.
I'm like, yeah, no.
It's like I think 17 acres of water.
I'm gonna take you guys to the Crystal
17
Lagoon.
acres of water.
We can
sounds like
we can
fun.
plan a little lunch there.
That sounds like fun. Let's do
That's where our lunch should be.
Let's do a planning lunch there.
Yes.
We will. We're gonna do it.
Perfect.
All right, so got a couple other questions. You guys have a really cool event, a kids event, October 26th coming up. And that's going to be at the Hudson Library. Library,
huh?
Plan your own city. Gosh, I didn't spit that all right, did I?
Yep.
Plan your own city. So what's that going to be about, that kids event?
So that event is actually part of our celebration of National Community Planning Month. And it's 2019 is the 13th annual National Community Planning Month by the American Planning Association, and they encourage education of planning to the community during all throughout the year, but particularly during October. So what we did was we prepared an event where kids can come out at the Hudson Library, play with blocks, and kind of get the idea of how to build unique places in cities and form how they can influence form and how they can decide on transportation decisions for the little cities that they're going to be building together.
I got to tell you a story about that. So remember we went to New York a while back? We did the cruise ship, remember, from New York? It's gone for a couple weeks. Okay.
Pat was there at the same time. You guys never linked up.
I know. Well, no, he was like, we were close but far. It was New York. Anyway, we got one of those hop-on tours, like the bus thing that you take to see the city, and with it also came a ticket for one of the museums. And so we're like, oh, this will be cool when we're going to do it. We're like checking we just like ran out of time. There was so much stuff to do. So right before the cruise, like after pretty much literally right after we checked out, we're like, let's just go to the museum. So we went to the museum, and I thought, oh, the kids will be kind of bored. You know, it's a museum. They might find a couple things they like. Well, there was this one little area in the museum where you could build your own, like, neighborhood block, city infrastructure, whatever. And the kids, like, we couldn't get them out of there. They almost didn't want to leave to go on the cruise because they were having so much fun there.
That's awesome.
They just wanted to stay and keep playing. And it had like all this information, like how green would your community be? You could figure out if you were going to put nightclubs in there or pools and where they were going to be, and like all this stuff.
It's kind of like a Mosey type museum where it's more hands-on and
it talked about like how much it would cost to live there. Would it be too expensive to build compared to, you know, what people would pay for it? You know, it was a really cool, like, I was just surprised how gravitated the kids were.
You know what's kind of interesting about that, too, is that when you have kids talk about planning and how to build their neighborhoods and cities in general, you get a really interesting perspective. I mean, a lot of times people forget that kids are full members of our community. They walk our sidewalks. They will walk into the stores with their parents. They'll experience the same places that we experience. Their idea of those spaces is much different than adults, and taking those into consideration is eye-opening.
That's
sometimes.
interesting. Do you have like an example? Do you have an example you can use?
Well,
The city's always,
Kids bring a fresh perspective.
the city's always much bigger in their eyes.
Yeah, because we're looking up.
But they also bring really fresh perspective that we as adults lose sight of.
Yeah, so do you have an example of something like
yeah,
that?
I could just give you an example of my son, for example. When we moved down here, of course, kids, what do they think about? They're like, well, how do I get to the park?
Yeah.
Right? And when we moved into our neighborhood, we started walking to the park and whatnot. So he just got an idea to start drawing what he thought was a really great neighborhood. And his entire map, let's say, it didn't have any streets. It had all sidewalks everywhere.
Because he can't drive.
Because he's not thinking about the car.
Right.
He doesn't think about the car. He wants to walk everywhere. So he's got the park, he's got the library, he's got the school. It's all walking distance from his house.
That's
kind of
ideal,
interesting.
right? That is the dream, though.
I saw something earlier today on Facebook where this group, or like this running club in Palm Harbor, somebody literally got hit by a car and like both of her knees were all skinned up and stuff, and like yelling at a pedestrian or a runner like a car did, like a hit and run, and they're just like, I can't even believe stuff like that.
I almost get hit by a car all the time when I run.
Really?
Yeah.
Where are you running?
Downtown, Channelside.
In Channelside? Mm-hmm. Oh my god!
I actually did get hit one time, but yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, did you do that thing where you just jumped into the windshield to try?
No, I saw her coming, so it worked out. But
Was they on their phone or something, not paying attention?
looking left to make a right hand turn and never looked back right before she, pulled out when I had the little crossing man sign.
So going back to what you were saying, Terry, that could be a good thing, right? There's no streets or no streets for cars in certain areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's every planner's dream, if you will, to plan for people and not cars, so to speak.
Why is that?
Well, because, cars are a machine. They're a machine. They're a tool that we use in our daily lives to get us from place to place. But when you start planning for people, you're actually designing and scaling your built environment so that people can maximize their own experience as an individual. You create more community. There's more sociability within the space. People become nicer because when we're in our cars, things become a little anonymous. Yeah,
I do get a little touchy with the horn.
If you're listening right now and you just honked your horn or you're being a little road rage, just slow down. This
Actually,
message
by
is
now,
for you.
everyone should be in their office cubicle right now listening to us.
Maybe not.
We should have whole offices listening
There's
to
some
us.
people drive all the time in the car.
I know at least one office in Pasco County that's listening to us.
Well, awesome. Thank you for listening. We appreciate you. All right, so when we come back, last segment, who knows what we're going to talk about? We're going to have some fun. Sound good? All right. It's Tampa Home Talk. Our off-air number, 813-377-2775. talking about this very same thing, right? How the planner's nightmare is the cars. You don't want any of them in. And literally in the traffic report that Pat just did, a pedestrian struck and killed, a fatal accident.
Sad to hear that. I wasn't hoping our show topic would be relevant.
No, but here's the thing, like that's so on time, right?
I was hoping it wouldn't be.
No, me too. But the point is, I don't know, there should be a little more planning around, like you say, people and not cars.
The old
Yes,
54 is
safety
not
is a
really
big
a populated. It's a jogging trail. Yeah, joggers.
Interesting.
So what's going on right now? Like, what's one of the coolest things coming? What's coming besides the Moffett Center?
Well, there's a lot happening in Pasco right now.
Oh, let me ask you one more question.
Sure.
How long did it take to connect 54 that changes into 56 all the way to Morris Bridge to 301? Because everybody's been talking about that.
How long did
How
that
long
take?
of a project was that?
I think I'm sure it predated me.
Oh, for sure. But just
Gosh.
curious how long.
I'm sure it must have been in some of the long-range transportation plans, like the 2025, 2020, maybe even going further back. But I think we mentioned at the top of the hour that they take about 20 some years to plan out. So
When are the planning, like the different meetings that are open to the public, when are those?
well, the Board of County Commissioners meet twice a month.
Are those open? They're
Yes,
open, right? Yeah.
Those are open, and there was just one on Monday actually this week, and then yesterday we had a planning commission meeting. So 2 times a month the Board of County Commissioners will meet. 2 times a month the Planning Commission will meet. Usually the same week. So the meeting this week for the board was on Monday, and yesterday was the Planning Commission meeting. So not next week, but the following week we'll have another Board of County Commissioners meeting. Actually, I think it's October 22nd, and October 24th is the Planning Commission. So if you follow that pattern.
Going back to what you're saying, the upcoming super cool projects, what you got?
Well, I was going to say that there's a lot of projects happening in Pasco County. Right now, our department is reviewing 232 development plans right now.
Wow.
That's how much growth is taking place in Pasco. We've got
So
65
232
zoning
new
cases.
neighborhoods.
Well, not necessarily
Ish.
neighborhoods. There are new neighborhoods that are being constructed across the county. Many of
Anything
those
coming
projects-
different? Is there anything coming that's like mixed use or anything different?
Mixed use? Yes.
I use that as an example, but yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of mixed use projects that are happening.
Like, is there anything coming that you would see like in Tampa that's like retail shop on the bottom, like residential?
They have some of those in Brandon and Riverview, it's like a
Winthrop?
strip mallish with the first floors are restaurants, the second and third floors kind of apartments.
Not quite happening right now in Pasco. We are getting developments that have the mix of residential and commercial retail together. but
Where are
not
those?
necessarily in the same buildings.
Oh, okay.
It's more like a fishhawk setup where it's got like a mini town
bit of both.
square that's commercial and then surrounded by apartments, then surrounded by homes.
Right. So I would say the area around 75 and 54, 56, that area is turning into a real nice mixed use area. Gosh, there's so many projects. Where to pick from?
What's the one you're most excited about right now? There's one that sticks out. You're like, oh, I like this one. Whether it keeps changing all the time or you just like it.
I think one of the more exciting projects that are happening in the county right now is kind of that, and it's currently being built out, for me at least, because it's also close to where I live. It's the Starkey Ranch commercial areas at Gunn and 54.
That's going to be the next little fish hawk
Or
area.
the area around Trinity and 54.
Oh, that's a nice area.
I drove right through there this week for the first time in a while, and I was surprised.
Did you
at
go the
how
other
much
way?
Construction was.
Did you go
was
back
done.
75? You should have.
No, I went back. This
When's the last time you went that way?
I go 75 all the time to
Oh,
go
you
back
do?
to the office.
Okay.
Yeah. I do
Well,
it
no,
every
you go
week.
75 till it curves at exit 264.
Or, you know. Or
Oh,
not
it's
animal. I gotta go home.
264 now.
We have a couple of projects too that are
that's good.
just east of the Sun Coast, new office developments. Those are really exciting. At I think it's like at the Ballantrae community area. Those are really good projects coming up. A couple office buildings actually that are something that the county really pursues. Try to get more jobs local to the community.
Yeah,
there.
because they don't want it to be, I forget what Catherine called that, like the sleeping community or whatever, where they
Yeah,
live here
bedroom
and work in
community.
Tampa, bedroom community, yeah.
Right.
So, where do you think, or where do you see a lot of the growth happening? Is it going to be between, say, Suncoast and the Gulf, or is it going to be between Suncoast and 75, or is it going to be on the other side of 75?
Stretch of 54, right, is huge, and 52.
Yeah. Like where is 54 going to get filled in at first? Basically, is it going to be
first? It's nonstop.
Yeah, I would say it's nonstop. Obviously, we have a lot of attention to the State Road 54, US 19 area, because that's where a lot of built infrastructure exists. There's a lot of attention right now in the area that you just mentioned between the Suncoast and I-75 along 54. State Road 54 is a really strategic road for the entire region, not just for Pasco County. It really provides that northern east-west route for the region. That when we were talking about looping systems, it would be that'd be
where the loop would be here for sure, right?
So you can imagine the loop beginning, let's say, in Pasco along 54, and then you loop out all the way down to 56, where you just mentioned, at 301, and then you could take 301 south and sort of loop in that direction.
That would be perfect. It would be a lot easier to do, obviously, on the east side of that loop.
Yeah, and I've actually heard.
So why couldn't they connect near? We talked about not looping in the bay, but they could connect somewhere near like 19, right around like that Gandy-ish. Make the loop there.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, there's BRT discussions, bus rapid transit, to go from St. Petersburg to Wesley Chapel.
When is that supposed to happen?
Well, I don't.
Just curious.
I don't know the exact
They're
date.
just talking about
they are planning for it now. I'm sure there's a date to it, but I don't know it off the top of my head. There's also some discussions about BRT services coming up US 19 too. So there you would have somewhat of a loop taking place, or at least forming. So what I was going to say earlier was that a lot of the activity is going to be taking place, I think, between the Suncoast and 75.
Okay.
Yeah, agreed.
So that's where it's going to fill in.
Yeah, because of that strategic east-west route, you have
Which
the
is
traffic
right
of
where we
75.
are.
Yeah, you have the traffic of 75. You'll have the traffic along the Veterans or the Suncoast. And then when people want to go from the Suncoast to 75, where are they going to go? They're going to go down 54 to get to it.
Yeah, for
Makes
sure.
sense.
All right, Leo, you got nothing?
No, I'm just very excited. I love planning. It takes me back to my county days.
How long did you do that, by the way?
County?
Yeah.
I was county for 5 years. I'm not saying which county. I'm just saying county. Because when you work for a county,
What haven't
you
you
just
done?
refer to yourselves as county. Am I right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
It's county.
All right, so what else? Any last closing things you want to say?
I would say that, as part of National Community Planning Month, we've got a couple of different events. We have weekly social media giveaways and contests taking
That's cool.
place. Yeah. On October the 17th, we will be at the Shops of Wiregrass for Community Night with the Pasco County Sheriffs. So we'll be talking planning with the
Last
community
thing,
out there.
real quick. Ask a Planner, October 31st. We're running out of time. Sorry.
Yes.
Got to cut you off. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. Thanks for joining us this week. Our author number is 813-377-2775. 813-377-2775. Remember, love where you live. I'm going to fix it. Welcome home. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.